This is Praesidus Type H-75 chronograph, and in today's video we will do a full review of this watch. I'll point out all the positives and the negatives as I find them, but now, as always, let's talk about the case and the dimensions. This model comes in a 38mm case diameter. It's about 45.5mm from one lug to another. The lug opening is 18mm, and this one is about 11.5mm in case height, including the domed crystal. The case is made out of stainless steel, and it features pretty much all satin finish, except for these high polish highlights on the lugs as well as on the pushers and the crown. The crown is located at the 3 o'clock position. It is not a screw-down crown. It's a simple push-pull style crown, and it is not signed, but it is sort of oversized in keeping with that vintage design language. Speaking of the design, this watch here is clearly based on these 1970s, 1960s pilot chronograph watches like Leonidas CP1 or the Breitling 817 military chronograph. There were a few of them issued to different air forces all around the world, and in today's world those watches are very expensive and very collectible. There are also modern equivalents and modern versions of those watches, like for example the Blancpain Air Commander chronograph, and of course this watch in front of us, the Praesidus, is supposed to be the affordable alternative to those more high-end expensive watches. This watch is quite affordable, $250, but that does come with some trade-offs. Like for example, you don't get a sapphire crystal, you get a domed acrylic crystal. On one hand, acrylic crystal is more accurate to the originals from 1960s and 1970s. On the other hand, having a sapphire crystal would be a welcomed addition. It would do two things. Number one, better scratch resistance, of course. Number two, better heft to the watch. One of the complaints that I have about this watch, it's not really a complaint, it's more of an observation, is the fact that this watch is quite light. And our brain has this connection between object being too light and object not being of a good quality. And even though this watch feels pretty good and the finishes are pretty good, because it is on the lighter side, my brain instantly thinks it's of an inferior quality, even though it's not. So I think having a sapphire crystal would make it a little bit more heftier, and thus it would make it feel more expensive. Right now, it does feel like a $300 watch. This model also comes with a diver style bezel. It's 120 click unidirectional. The bezel action is pretty good. It's nice and solid. There is a little bit of backplay, but it's not too much, and the bezel insert is made out of aluminum, as you would expect for a watch in this price category. Also, the watch does come with 100 meters of water resistance, so you could technically swim with it if you want to, but you probably want to exchange the strap for something like a rubber strap, because of course leather and water don't really mix well. The dial on this watch is kind of interesting. I'm glad that they went with the textured style dial instead of having it completely flat. This way, it plays with the light in an interesting way. It also fits the overall aesthetic that Praesidus is going for. So first of all, we have these Arabic raised numerals. The numeral at the 3 and 9 are cut off, because that's of course where you see the two subdials for the chronograph. Actually, the subdial at the 3 o'clock position, that's a 24-hour counter. The subdial at the 9 o'clock position, that's the 60-minute countdown for the chronograph. And of course, you have the central chronograph seconds hand. There is no running seconds hand on this watch, and to some people that will be a positive, to a lot of people that will be a negative. For those who think this is a negative, I completely understand. You want to know that your watch is ticking, so that's why having a central seconds hand, or a running seconds hand I should say, is very important. For me personally, I'm glad that there is no running seconds hand, because on the mecha-quartz chronograph movements, the seconds hand usually ticks one tick at a time, so you can instantly tell that that's a quartz movement. On this watch here, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know that it's a quartz movement, because when you engage the chronograph, it runs like a mechanical chronograph. It's not as smooth, but it's close enough. The design on the dial is overall pretty well balanced. It only has the logo by the 12 o'clock position. That's it. There is no other writing, except for all the way at the bottom there, it says USA assembled. Apparently these watches are assembled in United States. Now, the thing that I'm not so keen on in terms of the design of this watch, I like a lot of things. The only thing that I don't like is the fact that the hands and the indexes are of two different colors. So the indexes have this sort of more green loom-like color, and then you have this mustard yellow color on the set of hands. and that is in place to sort of mimic the vintage chronographs and the way they age to today. However, I myself don't really like it. Those two design elements in my mind don't mix very well. I wish that they just stuck with the same color for both the indexes and the set of hands. The other effect that it has is a negative effect on the loom. Here's a loom shot for your reference. As you can see, the indexes are actually loomed better than the set of hands, which is a bit backwards because usually you would expect the set of hands to have stronger loom than the indexes. You have a few different options of different straps. I have the one on a brown leather strap. I think overall the quality of the strap is pretty good. It's nice and thick, simple hardware, just a tang buckle, and it does have quick release for the pins, which I do appreciate. The only thing to keep in mind that this strap is a bit stiff when you first get it out of the box. You do have to wear it in for a few days for it to sort of conform to your wrist, and then it becomes a lot more comfortable. And here's the watch on my 7.5 inches wrist. I think overall it fits pretty well. It does fit smaller because it does have a smaller diameter, only 38 millimeters. So if you have a really big wrist, this one is probably going to look too small. But as a vintage inspired timepiece, it does make sense for it to be on the smaller side. I personally like how it fits on the wrist. The leg to leg distance is not too short, so overall it's a pretty balanced look. If you have sort of a medium size to a smaller size wrist, you should be comfortable wearing this watch. If you have a very large wrist, let's say 8 inches in diameter and larger, it might look a little bit too small for you. And in terms of comfort on the wrist, it's very comfortable. It's a very light watch, and once the strap sort of conforms to your wrist, you almost forget that you're even wearing a watch. To keep this chronograph more affordable, Praesidus chose to use Seiko caliber VK64 mecha-quartz chronograph movement. I'm a big fan of this movement. I think overall it mimics the look of a mechanical chronograph pretty well. The engagement on the pushers is not as satisfying as a mechanical chronograph. The travel is just not deep enough, so you know that it's not a mechanical chronograph. However, the way it resets to 0 and the way it ticks 3 to 4 beats per second, it kind of does a pretty good job of imitating a mechanical chronograph, especially the vintage mechanical chronographs, because those ones had a pretty low beat rate. Overall, I think Praesidus did a really good job with this watch. I like the design of it quite a bit. I like how it fits on my wrist. I also like the package. The value for money is definitely there. Could this watch be cheaper? Yeah, maybe like $200. That would make it a really good deal, or at $250 with a sapphire crystal. As it is right now, it's a pretty good deal, but it's not like amazing, if you know what I mean. If you like the design of this watch and you add one to your collection, I don't think you'll be disappointed with it. I don't think you'll be disappointed with the overall quality and how it wears. I appreciate you watching this video all the way until the end. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought about this watch. I always enjoy reading your comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.